It was an ordinary morning at the Royal Grand Hotel, one of the city's most renowned luxury establishments. The hotel, with its walls adorned with contemporary art and a breathtaking view of the urban skyline, maintained a reputation for exclusivity. Only the wealthiest and most influential clients could stay there, and the manager, James Barlow, was a man who firmly believed that the position of a hotel like this should reflect an equally select clientele. James had a way of conducting his work that, over the years, guaranteed him relative peace of mind, but also a growing elitist outlook. For him, an impeccable image was essential. He believed that his team should always keep up appearances and that his clientele should reflect the same standards. Nothing that was considered out of place could be tolerated. When Marcus arrived, he wasn't the kind of customer James imagined could be part of the Royal Grand Hotel experience. Marcus Anderson was a 32-year-old black man with an imposing, but not arrogant posture. He had arrived at the hotel in an elegant black suit, his hair carefully cut and a calm countenance that displayed confidence without being excessive. Marcus was not just any client. He was, in fact, a prominent investor, but his style and appearance were not what James had expected to see in that hotel. For the manager, Marcus, like so many others, didn't fit the desired profile. As soon as Marcus entered reception, the tension was palpable. The clerk, Sophie, a young woman with blonde hair and a polite expression, noticed James' gaze and hurried over to Marcus, trying to hide her surprise. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" Marcus replied with a friendly smile. "Hello, I have a reservation in the name of Marcus Anderson." The attendant, Sophie, frowned for a moment, as if she was trying to confirm Marcus's booking on the system. After a few seconds of hesitation, she looked at James, who was at his desk, watching everything closely. James approached the reception desk, his gaze fixed on Marcus. He didn't like what he saw. Marcus' manner, his posture, seemed incongruous with the type of customer he thought should frequent the hotel. James, trying to keep his composure, looked at Sophie and said, "Sophie, I'll take care of it." James then turned to Marcus, his gaze harder now. "Mr. Anderson, unfortunately, there seems to have been an error in your reservation. We don't have a room available for you at the moment." Marcus, surprised, tried to reply, "I have a confirmation on my cell phone. Let me show you." James quickly cut Marcus off. "That's not necessary, sir." He said this with a tone of authority, as if his word was the law at the Royal Grand Hotel. "We can't accommodate you at the moment." "I'm sorry, but I think you'd better find somewhere else to stay." Marcus, who until that moment had remained calm, realized that something was wrong. The treatment he was receiving was clearly different. It wasn't just about a booking mistake. There was something more involved. The way James spoke to him, the insinuation that he shouldn't be there, was what really made him question. "With all due respect, sir, this appears to be a mistake." Marcus spoke firmly. "I have a confirmed reservation. And I also believe that this has more to do with my presence here than with any error in the system." James moved even closer, with a forced smile, but clearly uncomfortable with the situation. He didn't want the hotel to be associated with customers he didn't consider suitable. James felt it was his responsibility to keep the hotel's image impeccable, and in his eyes, Marcus didn't fit into that picture. "I understand your frustration, Mr. Anderson, but..." James hesitated for a moment, but continued, with a tone of superiority. "I insist, you shouldn't feel offended, but the Royal Grand Hotel is an exclusive place, and unfortunately you're not the kind of client we're looking for." "James, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm beginning to understand what's going on here. I'm not the kind of person you'd like to see in this hotel, am I?" James took a step back, surprised by Marcus' audacity. "It's nothing personal, Mr. Anderson, just..." But before she could finish her explanation, Sophie, the attendant, stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. She didn't know how to deal with the growing tension and felt that something was very wrong. "James," Sophie started to speak in a shaky voice, but before she could continue, the hotel door suddenly opened. It was William Harper, the owner of the Royal Grand Hotel, a man known for his fortune and the ruthless control he had over the hotel. He entered with an elegant yet imposing bearing and soon noticed the tension between James and Marcus. William, in his 60s, had a sharp gaze and a presence that could not be ignored. "James, what's going on here?" William asked, his eyes quickly settling on Marcus, who was calmly waiting for a solution. James, clearly disconcerted, tried to give a quick explanation, but William interrupted. "I asked you what's going on, James." William looked directly at Marcus and then, with a friendly smile, said, "Mr. Anderson, it's a pleasure to have you here." James looked at William in amazement. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He looked at Marcus again and finally realized who he was. Marcus Anderson wasn't just any customer. He was the new owner of the hotel. Reality hit James hard. He was facing someone much more powerful than he had imagined. Marcus, for his part, observed the sudden change in James' demeanor, but decided to do nothing more than give a reassuring smile. "Mr. Harper, thank you for the welcome. I think there's been a slight misunderstanding," Marcus said calmly, showing no anger, only relief at finally understanding the reason for the bad treatment. James, now completely bewildered, tried to disguise his embarrassment, but it couldn't be helped. He had made a mistake that could cost him much more than his job. William, with a stern look at James, said, "James, escort me to my office now." The manager, now visibly nervous, bowed, tried to keep his composure, but the words could no longer come out of his mouth. He knew that his future was about to be decided right then and there. James Barlow followed William Harper into the hotel owner's office, his heart beating faster with every step. He knew the situation was beyond his control, but he couldn't deny the shame he felt. How could he have been so blind? How could he treat Marcus Anderson so prejudicially, without even knowing who he was? Even worse, how could he make such a mistake in front of such an important client? As they entered William's office, the atmosphere became tense. The walls were adorned with paintings by renowned artists, but there was no point in the luxurious surroundings now. James felt he was being judged, and there was no escaping it. William sat behind his dark mahogany desk, while James stood, trying to hold himself together, but not knowing what to expect. The tension was palpable. The only thing he knew for sure was that the fate of his career was in William's hands. "James," William began, his voice cold, but not without a firmness that would make anyone cringe. "What has happened here is not just a mistake. This is something much more serious." James swallowed. He knew that this would go beyond a simple reprimand. It was a question of trust, and he had failed. He searched for words, but shame prevented him from speaking immediately. William continued, "I trusted you to maintain the hotel's standards, but this isn't just about standards of quality, service, or luxury. It's about respect. Respect for everyone who walks through our doors, regardless of who they are, where they come from, or what they look like." James wanted to defend himself. He wanted to justify his behavior, but he couldn't find the words. He knew he was wrong. He knew that his prejudices, his ideas about who should and shouldn't be welcome in that hotel, were completely out of place. He was seeing the impact of his own failings. Reality hit him harder than any words William could say. "Marcus Anderson is not just any client. He's one of my main investors now. You've treated him as if he were less than he is, just because of the way he looks. And that attitude, James, is not acceptable. You're not just damaging his career, you're tarnishing the hotel's image." William paused, and James felt the weight of every word. He wanted to apologize, but he didn't know how. Nothing could fix what he had done. "I understand, sir. I'm deeply sorry. I made a colossal mistake, and I accept the consequences." James finally managed to speak, his voice failing in the process. He knew he was at a dead end. William stared at him for a few seconds, and the pressure in the room seemed to increase. "This mistake can't be ignored, James," William sighed. "You have a good track record, but this kind of behavior cannot be tolerated on any level. I don't know what you were thinking, but it's unacceptable. I expected more from you." James felt his hopes of keeping his job dwindle even further. He knew that William was disappointed, and that the owner's words were not only reproaching his actions, but also the failure of his vision of leadership and respect for people. He felt like he was failing not just as a manager, but as a human being. Finally, William got up from his chair and walked over to the window, looking out at the city below. For a moment, he seemed to be considering something. James stood there, motionless, waiting for the final verdict. "I'm not going to fire you, James," William said, slowly turning to face him. "But I am going to transfer you to a position where you will have to prove that you can change, that you can evolve. You'll work in one of our branches in a smaller town where you can learn about what it really means to welcome all kinds of people. And in the meantime, I hope you'll reflect on your attitudes and, more importantly, on how your ideas about who deserves respect have affected your work." James was surprised by William's decision. He had expected to be fired immediately, but instead William gave him an opportunity to correct his mistake. The anger and resentment he felt towards himself began to give way to gratitude. Perhaps there was a path to redemption. "Thank you for the opportunity, sir. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that I can change." James replied, his voice lower and full of regret. "I hope you understand the gravity of the situation," William said, his expression softer now. "Now go. And remember, what happened today isn't just about you. What you did reflects on all of us, and that needs to be put right." James bowed discreetly before leaving the office. He was relieved not to be fired, but he was also aware that there was a long way to go to regain everyone's trust, especially Marcus. After the incident, Marcus Anderson, the real protagonist of the story, remained calm. He knew that what had happened was a unique opportunity to change the hotel, and he didn't want James' actions to interfere with his goal. Marcus didn't want revenge or traditional justice. He wanted to teach a lesson. That's why, after the meeting with William, he asked to speak directly to the manager. James, who was now feeling the pressure of his new position, didn't know what to expect, but he knew he had to face Marcus respectfully. When the two met, Marcus began with a simple but direct smile. "James, life gives us opportunities, and you've just been given a chance that many wouldn't have. I'm not here to see you fail, but to make you understand that respect for everyone is the basis for a successful job." James, now in a more humble position, looked at Marcus with sincerity. "I made a mistake that I can't easily correct, but I'm willing to learn, Marcus." Marcus nodded slowly, feeling that perhaps, in fact, James was capable of change. He didn't know if James would fully understand the lessons that life could teach him, but he was willing to give it a chance. "That's all I ask of you. Change begins with humility, James, and you have everything you need to become a better version of yourself." James, feeling the weight of responsibility, finally agreed. He knew that if he was going to move forward, he would have to completely change his worldview, especially his perception of who really deserved respect and dignity. At the end of this story, the message we want to convey is simple but profound. Respect is the basis of all human relationships, whether professional, personal, or in any social interaction. When Marcus was treated with prejudice by James, he didn't seek revenge, but an opportunity for change. He recognized the importance of teaching the lesson that a person's true value is not measured by their appearance, their origin, or any other stereotype imposed by society. James' journey also offers us an important reflection. We all make mistakes, but what defines our journey is our willingness to learn, grow, and change. It often takes a shock of reality to wake us up to the need to review our behavior and attitudes, and above all, to act with empathy and understanding towards others. So the message is clear. It's not enough just to wish for a fairer, more equal world. We need to act consciously to create that world, starting with our own behaviors, attitudes, and choices. Each of us has the power to change, to challenge our own prejudices, and to create an environment that welcomes and respects everyone. Change begins with each one of us.